posted online by pro-government militia members following the seizure. Bulgaria told the UN investigators that it had shipped 81mm mortar rounds with the same serial number to the UAE military. The latter has previously denied repeated accusations that it is fueling conflict by arming the RSF in its war against the Sudan army. South Africa says the people of Gaza are under a complete siege from Israel. This morning, the International Court of Justice is hearing submissions from different countries. ICJ has opened hearings to gauge Israel's responsibility for the humanitarian crisis engulfing Gaza during its war against Hamas. The hearings, which began on Monday in The Hague, will run throughout the week. This follows a request last year from the United Nations General Assembly asking the court to assess Israel's responsibility to ensure the provision of essential supplies to Gaza. International Relations Director General Zain Dango says Israel has blatantly ignored its obligations as stipulated by the international law.
Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said on 16 April 2025, and I quote, "Israel's policy is clear. No humanitarian aid is about to enter Gaza. There are no preparations to enable such aid." Under the world's watchful eye, Palestinians across the occupied Palestinian territories are being subjected to atrocity crimes, persecution, apartheid, and genocide.
Tunisia's Coast Guard has recovered the bodies of 8 African migrants who drowned off the country's coast. Their boat sank as it sailed towards Europe. Authorities say 29 others were rescued. The boat sank in waters off the city of Abu Dhabi near Sfax, a departure point often used by African migrants. Tunisia is grappling with an unprecedented migration crisis and has replaced Libya as a major departure point for both Tunisians and others in Africa seeking a better life in Europe. Lastly, the authorities in Indian-administered Kashmir have closed 48 tourist destinations to the public in a bid to tighten security after last week's attack on holiday makers. Gunmen shot dead 26 men at close range in the Pahalgam area. The BBC's Anbarasan Etirajan.
Officials said the tourist locations which had been shut were in remote areas of Indian-administered Kashmir and include some of the new destinations opened in the past 10 years. Nestled in the Himalayas with snow-capped mountains and picturesque valleys, Kashmir has been emerging as India's tourism hotspot as violence there has waned in recent years. More than 3 million people visited the region last year. The latest attack has triggered tensions between India and Pakistan, which both claim Kashmir in full but administer it only in part.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
It is 6 minutes after 1 Central African time. Hello. And a very warm welcome to The Upside. My name is Thami Ngubeni with Tebokhole Khuleni, and we're with you until 4 p.m. Central African Time. Broadcasting live from our Johannesburg studios out here in South Africa. It is such a pleasure being with you. We're hoping that you will stay with us throughout. Stay on Channel Africa throughout. You know, there is a fantastic variety of shows on this platform. Hello.
Hello, ma'am. How are you doing? Listen, I'm good. Beautiful weather outside. And I'm saying this, I consistently say, what a beautiful weather, clear skies, or a few, clouds in there. All this in preparation for a cold front that's coming over the next couple of days, projected. So for now, enjoy the weather, be outside.
I'm not having fun, I must say. It's enough now.
What is it's too hot?
Yeah, it's hot. Also, I left home at 3 a.m. this morning. I'm like vests and it's overdressed, but I'm not enjoying it. I'm glad one of us is.
Love the fit. Love the fit. Check out her fit on our social media platforms. We are streaming live at Channel Africa 1 on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Channel Africa. We're talking about interesting conversations. We're having interesting conversations today. I didn't know there was such a thing as cosmeceuticals. So today I'm going to be learning. We're going to be talking about cosmetics versus cosmeceuticals. Yeah. We're going to be talking about inflammaging. I didn't even know that's a word.
I know about inflammation, right?
I know inflammation. Yes, inflammaging.
No, so you and I both are going to be learning. But I think it's a similar concept to inflammation.
Yeah.
We're just going to be looking at it from a different perspective. I'm glad. I mean, you told me that you're into this whole skincare thing.
But mine is very minimal. Hey, mine is simply very minimal. When I read up about how other people are doing skincare, I'm like, mine is very minimal. Mine at most face wash, and that's about it. And then every now and then maybe a mask and the exfoliation. But I realized that I'm not as consistent as I need to be to get the results that I would like. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So you are going to be learning something about consistency. You're going to be learning something about potentially just re-looking your regime from just topical and looking at it from just something that goes beyond the outer layer of your skin, right?
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to be talking about in the first hour of the show. I am also very much excited to talk about the world of podcasting.
Growing significantly,
certainly,
exponentially.
Because more and more people are doing what we're doing on the platform, going from just mics, audios, to audiovisual.
Like we're doing now.
That
Absolutely.
Industry is certainly growing, and that's what we'll be talking about. So if you are interested in that field, growing in it, understanding it more, we're going to be speaking to the Goethe Institute of Johannesburg. They are collaborating with the French Institute of South Africa as well as the South African Podcasting Guild to launch a podcast training for audio-visual professionals. So rather excited for that one. But we'd love to hear from you. Because going to tell us what caught his eye.
Absolutely. You too. Absolutely.
I too will be sharing what caught my eye. Staying on the podcast theme.
Yes, yours is, definitely.
And of course, lots of great music. At any point, if you want to engage with us, and make your contribution towards the conversation that we're going to be having, the number to dial is +27 63 406 9126.
Listen, we'll also be delving into Maya Arden's new novel, 1,000 Eyes on You. A tale about cosmic love. What is that? Cosmic tale of love? I don't know what that is.
I mean, when I read that, I was like, how creative. I also want to find out what cosmic love in the African context, right? It says something about ancestry as well. So there's a lot.
Indigenous magic.
A lot going there, a mishmash, but in beautifully told stories. So we'll be finding out a little bit about literacy as well.
Literacy. I heard something very interesting before we go into. Do you know Alicia Keys' husband?
Yes.
Swizz Beatz or something like that.
Hottie, yes.
He once recalled a situation where Alicia Keys turned down $9 million to perform for 9 minutes because they were enjoying quality time. So I wanted to find out from our listeners, are you willing to turn down the bag for quality time? Let us know.
That's
+27
if the hottie of the husband
406
has enough money and I have enough. I mean, duh. Obviously, she did the maths and she thought cuddles are better.
But it got me thinking, what are you willing to sacrifice for your peace, for your quality time? Is there a price tag on that? Let us know on our social media platforms. Anyway, it's 12 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African
much
time.
to think about, to be honest.
Mpumelelo has already decided it's never going to happen. Anyway, this is The Upside. Let's enjoy some music.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu maswala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Midday vibes, great programming, and good company. This is Channel Africa.
She wanna chill with the big boys. She want money, she want enjoy. When she with me, give her ding dong. She ain't my feast with the big boy. She wanna chill with the big boys. She want money, she want enjoy. When she with me, give her ding dong, make her enjoy with a big boy. I'm a big boy, enjoy, give her big fuss. I'm a enjoy with a big boy. I'm a big boy, enjoy, give her big fuss.
Big boy, yeah, she let her call me Poppy. Late at night, yeah, she ride it like a Harley. Anything you want just to make you happy. Dinner time, yeah, chew it like a chappy. Damn piece on my side like I'm over. Lucky like a 4-leaf clover. Kill it, dumb till it's over. Love drunk, baby, give me hangover. You know the vibe is so fine, I cannot control my eye. And I no reply when the streets hit me up, I know be shy. Baby, you a dream, forever my queen.
She wanna chill with the big boys. She want money, she want enjoy. When she with me, give her ding dong. She ain't my feast with the big boy. She wanna chill with the big boys. She want money, she want enjoy. When she with me, give her ding dong, make her enjoy with a big boy. I'm a big boy, enjoy, give her big fuss. I'm a enjoy with a big boy. I'm a big boy, enjoy, give her big fuss.
Yeah. Bébé, qu'est-ce que tu fais, dis-moi tu es fait, Je veux expliquer, give me couple seconds.
Enjoy with a big boy. I'm a big boy, enjoy. Give a big fuss, I'ma enjoy, enjoy. With a big boy, I'm a big boy, enjoy. Give a big fuss.
Big boy, yeah, she let her call me papi. Late at night, yeah, she ride it like a Harley. Anything you want just to make you happy.
Connecting Africa to the world. The Upside with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Likoleni. Bringing you Africa's brightest ideas and untold stories.
17 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African Time. Big Boys by Manu World Star, Tiani Africa, and Vuga M. Welcome to the Upside if you've just joined us on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. All right, it is a beautiful one. Don't let Nompumelelo convince you otherwise. We are live on the SABC Plus app. Download it on your Android or iOS device. Stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za or on social media at Channel Africa 1 on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and at Channel Africa on Facebook. Let's get into our first conversation where we unpack and understand the differences between cosmetics and cosmeceuticals, as many of us are a bit confused. By many, I mean me.
No, I think on this conversation, we're both to learn something, right? Because we are looking at when life starts showing on your face.
Yes.
So the fatigue from being a hardworking man at Channel Africa, from doing all those voiceovers. I mean, you're an avid hiker.
Yes,
so you're out in the sun and all sorts of weather conditions at the weekend, walking for kilometers on end, maintaining friendship. Life happens and it starts showing on your face.
Yeah.
And so in this conversation, we are finding out about the root cause, really, of inflammaging. And what it is and how we can maintain healthy skin by incorporating antioxidant-rich products, retinoids, and I love this brand from which Karen Bester is from. She's a medical trainer at Lamel. I remember the first facial I ever had. They also said that I need to get the Lamel products, so quite au fait with them. Karen Bester is joining us on the line, and really she's going to be talking to us about inflammaging. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, that is in.
We talk about inflammaging.
Inflammaging. Not
it's
inflammaging.
the combination of inflammation and aging.
Aha, Karen. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
I mean, my first question to people like you, and this is really for the purposes of Tebogo, but many like Tebogo who are listening to us, is the weather is sunny. He's really enjoying the weather outside here in South Africa. It is sunny. It's warm. What does one need to do immediately and continuously throughout a day like this if you are exposed to weather conditions such as those that we are?
So I think for us, our most important things that we need to do is we need to look after our skin from a sun protection point of view. So sunscreen is very, very important, because if you go and compare any skin, so that regardless of the color or age, if I take a 36-year-old white female or a 36-year-old black female, and I put them from Africa, and I put them next to a 36-year-old white female and a black female from Europe, our skins will always be aging more, and that's due to the amount of sun exposure that we have. And then it's extremely important to always use antioxidants, and especially in our lifestyle where our diet and our stress is devastating our bodies with regards to free radicals. And then on top of that, we've got pollutants. So those are very, very important factors that we need to use to keep our skin as young as possible. But on the inflammaging front, that becomes a little bit more technical.
And we will find out exactly what the technicalities of it is.
Sorry, I can just see people's...
No worries. Thank you so much. We We're in conversation at the moment with Karen Bester, medical trainer at Lamel, and she's going to tell us all about inflammaging. We'll get into the technicalities of it just after this.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
An investigation by South Africa's non-profit organization Open Secrets has found that telecoms company MTN has played a role in shutting down the internet during elections and wars in Sudan, Cameroon, Iran, Afghanistan and Uganda, thus enabling governments to silence the opposition.
Interestingly, this isn't just unique to MTN. I think the report also looks at Vodacom DRC as being a proponent of one of these violations, particularly in shutting down the internet during the elections in 2018 and 2019. Autocratic regimes are able to utilize the licenses that they have with these telecom companies basically to political dissent, and the result is that many people are left without connectivity. And not only does this affect people's ability to communicate with their loved ones and access vital emergency services, but also at a very basic level of access to information.
The Open Secrets investigator Lu Vorne Unduli.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Central African Time. Join Tebucho and Nompumelelo on The Upside, where optimism meets opportunity.
It's 23 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African Time. We are still in conversation with Karen Bester, medical trainer at Lamel, to tell us all about inflammaging. Karen, before the break, you were trying to explain to us the technicalities of inflammaging. Can we start off with the basics? What is inflammaging? And then you can get into those technicals.
Okay, so we're all familiar with inflammation. So inflammation is I hurt myself and my skin goes red and it swells up, or something bites me and I go red and I swell up. That's inflammation. And inflammation is extremely important. It protects us and it triggers the process of healing. Unfortunately, as we grow older, and especially if we're very stressed, we're exposed to pollutants, we don't have enough antioxidants in our bodies, we spend a lot of time in the sun, our cells act as if they are inflamed, but there's no injury. And what that then leads to is aging tissue. So part of our aging processes and the exacerbation, the worsening of our aging is caused by this. It's like the cell is overreactive. And on top of everything else that then causes aging. And it's not just in our skins. We speak about it in our skin, but they actually think that this chronic inflammation or inflammaging is part of our aging processes of all our tissues. Now, we can help that along by living a stressless life. How possible is that?
Impossible.
Never being in the sun. That's why vampires live forever. But, that's not going to happen in Africa. Eating enough fruits and vegetables so that we're getting the antioxidants. But at Lamel, we've really focused on this inflammaging because we realize we're doing so much to fix our cells and make them make more collagen and elastin and hyaluronic acid, but we're not looking after this process of inflammaging. So we've actually gone and found ingredients that go and turn off the genetic trigger, that gene, that switch that causes this type of activity from the cell. And that's in the Derby Hill products.
All right. Before we get into the products, Karen, I mean, some of the aspects that you were mentioning that lead to inflammaging are lifestyle issues, right? That we're not taking care of that could aid in the regression or the slowing down of the inflammaging process. Let's quickly go through some of those lifestyle issues that are easy to implement that can aid in the slowing down of that process.
Well, we're going to go back to what your doctor and your mother and the nurse says. And that is that we need to look at, well, firstly, we need to manage our stress. It's impossible to live in a stressless environment. But we need to manage our stress. So we need to look at mindfulness, exercise, getting out, making sure that we have something to distract our brains, which could be a hobby, so that we do have time where we are stressless. Some people go exercise. No, exercise stresses
Not for
me,
you.
so- Not for me. No, I'm teasing. Exercise is very good. The second thing that we need to look at is our diet. And unfortunately, we do live in a fast food environment. It's easy to just grab something on the go. And it's expensive to grab good things on the go. And we go back to, I don't know if you were taught at school, but 5 fruits and vegetables in a day. And if you start counting the amount of portions you've had, it's nearly scary. If you're not able to do that, then to go and look at good supplementation. So get a multivitamin in so that because from our plant sources, we need the antioxidants. We need the fiber as well.
Sure.
But we need the antioxidants that'll help us to lower the risks of this inflammaging. Of course, drinking enough water is also good. And if you're looking at your daily intake, probably 1 liter to 1.5 liters in a day is what we need for just general life. Of course, if you're looking at weight gain, that's a totally different story. And then it is also about trying to limit the toxins. So limiting smoking, limiting alcohol use, those will also help to keep our bodies healthier.
Sure.
So it's back to basics. And then the sugars and not too much fat.
Karen, are there any early warning signs that we can look out for on our skins to make us realize that we are in the state of an inflammaging? Are there any signs that we can look out for?
That's the problem, is that you cannot see this inflammaging. So generally, there's no symptoms. It's not red, it's not swollen, it's not raised. But what we do see is that you start seeing textural change. So your skin starts looking dull. You might see areas of pigment that are suddenly darker. And then the late stages, of course, are the lines and the wrinkles, the sagging, and all of those contribute to the look of oldness.
Sure. I mean, that's really tough. Tell us about what it is that you are doing at Lamel. And I say it's tough because no one wants to look wrinkly.
I want to look young.
How are you, or how have you, with the products that you offer, intend to just treat this inflammaging?
So you mentioned the retinoids and the vitamin C's. Those are standard practice because what they do is they actually rebuild the cells and the activity of the cell. But what we've done is we've found an ingredient. It's called Nobelatin. I know that means absolutely nothing to anybody that's not using Lamel. But what it does,
Nobelatin.
So we don't just Nobelatin, yes. We don't just go and look at what's happening around the cell and fix that, but we go to the actual gene of the cell and we turn the gene off that triggers this bad behavior. So from the cell, that is. And it's called a cyclooxygenase inhibitor. If you've ever used non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, those are also cyclooxygenase inhibitors.
Okay.
And we do it without affecting the inflammation that you need. We still need acute inflammation. We need to see when your skin is injured. So we're only turning off the chronic inflammaging. We're not turning off the inflammation processes, which is very, very important because otherwise we wouldn't be able to heal. And those ingredients are in our products. So, technical but advanced, but there and great, and you'll be using it and not even know it.
Look, and it sounds efficient, right? Because you are attacking the root and not just the result or the symptoms of. All right, what is that line called, Karen, or the line of products?
It's the It's the Derma Hill range of products.
The Derma Hill. But Karen, we have run out of time. So we are going to thank you very much for your time and your insights. We've certainly learned a lot here on this inflammation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That is Karen Bester, a medical trainer at Lamel. All right. You're going to make sure that you're reading up more on it, yeah?
Absolutely. I think the scary part is that there aren't any signs. And you can't even see that
until it's too late, until you're wrinkly.
Until you're a bit wrinkly. So lifestyle changes and maybe getting a few products from Lamel would help you out. It's 31 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African time. Let's get the latest in sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibudi Makura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. We'll start here. Zimbabwe National Association Netball President Letitia Chipandu says collaboration amongst African teams is quite important to grow the sport on the African continent. Chipandu joined other dignitaries for the 2025 South Africa Telkom Netball Premier League opening ceremony at the Sun City Super Bowl in the Northwest Province on Monday. She also accompanies the Zimbabwe national team, which is part of the 18 teams competing in this year's championship. Chipandu adds that she's happy to see the Zambezi Eagles feeding from one of the top nations in netball on the continent.
No, I believe together we will conquer. As individuals, we don't perform much. We saw this as an opportune time for us to network with South Africa, partnering with South Africa. South Africa is the biggest sister in Africa in netball. They are positioned 5 in the world, and we believe we will be learning from the best in Africa.
Now, Chipandu also confirmed that the Zimbabwe national team is using this league to build up to the 2027 World Cup qualifiers. She also adds that despite the slow start to the league, the team is headed into the right direction and encourages them to learn from other top teams in this year's league.
I am happy with the performance so far. We started sluggishly, slow, but we are picking up as time is moving. And I would want to say to the technical team or to the coaches that they need to be very vigilant, make sure that the girls are watching the other games that are being played, and then they learn the different movements, the different tactics that they see being employed, and then also implement as they train and practice.
On to football news now. In an explosive turn of events following Al Ahly's elimination from the CAF Champions League, the Egyptian Giants are bracing for a disciplinary hearing from the Confederation of African Football. Moments after their match against Mamelodi Sundowns, frustrated Al Ahly fans directed their disappointment at the head coach, Marcel Koller, match officials as well as players hurling water bottles in a chaotic scene that marred the aftermath of their loss to Mamelodi Sundowns at the Cairo International Stadium on Friday night. As the players as well as officials made their way to the exit tunnel, the Red Devil fans voiced their dissatisfaction. Now, the defeat was a hammer blow for Al Ahly, a club synonymous with success in African football. Al Ahly may soon face severe penalties, including a potential stadium ban, as well as the prospect of playing behind closed doors. CAF has increasingly taken a tough stance against clubs that breach its rules as well as regulation. Onto this now. Australian Max Purcell has accepted an 18-month ban for breaching anti-doping rules in a case the two-time Grand Slam doubles champion said had been seriously affecting his quality of life. Purcell, who was provisionally suspended in December of 2024, admitted to the use of a prohibited method of receiving infusions of over 500 milliliter of vitamins on the 16th as well as on the 20th of December 2023. The 27-year-old, whose major titles came at Wimbledon in 2022 and the 2024 US Open, did not test positive for a banned substance, but according to the International Tennis Integrity Agency, also known as the ITIA, limit under the World Anti-Doping Code and TATB is 100 milliliters in a 12-hour period. In a statement, it also added, following a full investigation by the ITIA, which included evidence gathering as well as interviews with the player, Parcell admitted to the breaches. The player's full cooperation as well as information sharing with the ITIA allowed for a 25% reduction in the sanction. Parcell's ban will end officially on the 11th of June in 2026 after taking into account the time he had already served. And finally, knife cricket action. South Africa is currently taking on India in their first match of the Women's Tri-Nation Series out in Colombo in Sri Lanka. It was India who won the toss first and elected to bat. They got to 276 for the loss of 6 wickets in their 50 allotted overs in the middle. South Africa currently chasing 277 in their run chase. They are currently on 236 for the loss of 4 wickets. This after 45 overs. So essentially 5 overs left in South Africa's run chase. They need 41 runs from 30 balls. Their current run rate is 5 runs per over. They need about 8 runs per over to win this encounter against India, who come into this match having defeated Sri Lanka in their opening match. That's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @ newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
38 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African Time. Buntle Headbush has your latest in business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. In our top story this afternoon, South Africa's Minister of Energy and Electricity, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, has embarked on a working visit to Botswana yesterday, where he held discussions with his counterpart, Bogolo Kenawendo. The visit was aimed at strengthening the two countries' strategic partnership in the energy and electricity sectors. The head of the communications and stakeholder relations in the department, Tsakane Kambane, explains.
No, I believe together we will conquer. As individuals, we don't perform much. We saw.
We apologize for that sound. Moving on to our next story. Small Business Development Minister Stella Ndabeni says the ocean's economy is South Africa's next gold mine, and it's important that everyone, including those in the townships and villages, benefit from it. She was speaking at the first provincial G20 launch, taking place in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province over the next 2 days. The South African rand has weakened slightly today as investors await the finance minister to say when he will present another revised national budget. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has to make further adjustments after scrapping a contentious hike in the value-added tax that was fiercely opposed across the political spectrum. The rand traded at 18.57 rand against the dollar earlier today, down 0.43% on its previous close. Godongwana initially proposed a 2 percentage point hike in VAT in a February budget and watered that down to a 1-point VAT increase spread over 2 years in an amended March budget, but caved into pressure to withdraw it after most political parties continued to reject the plan. Now, taking a look at our indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 60. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 527. And in Zambia, it's 27 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 67. Russia is 82 rubles 34. India, 85 rupees 20. China, it's 7 yuan 29. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 18 rand 61. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Taking a look at our commodities, gold is trading at $3,311 and platinum at $985 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $65.27 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Wuntle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública, para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrada com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção por VIH-Sida. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
All right, it is 43 minutes after 1 Central African time. Can you see me now?
You've got a glow on you. I didn't realize this before.
I didn't realize that you couldn't see me before. I mean, that's really interesting. All right, we are back, continuing to talk about, talking about seeing each other. When previously, just before the interview that we're going to have now, previously we were talking about just going beyond just a skin surface, right?
Yeah.
And attacking the root cause of our skin ailments. Now we're going to be talking about topical ways that we can do so as well, cosmetic ways in which we are able to do so. So you speak about your moisturizers, foundations, and.
Listen, and again, I said earlier, a topic that I'm not really familiar with, but I want to learn today. So if you are like me and you've got questions, you're more than welcome to send them through on our WhatsApp line, +27 63 406 9126. But have you ever wondered if that pricey face cream on your shelf is just marketing magic or real science? Today, we are decoding the world of cosmetics versus cosmeceuticals. What's the real difference? And what should you be looking for if you want results that go beyond surface level beauty? To help us unpack and decode this, we are joined on the line by Dr. Maureen Allen, founder and medical director of Skin Renewal. Dr. Maureen, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Hi, Tiboko. Thank you for having me.
Lovely having you. Let's talk, let's unpack it. Let's, as basic and layman's as possible, what makes a product a cosmeceutical instead of just a cosmetic?
Okay, so cosmetic is something that you put on your skin, but it's very superficial, very surface level. So it will cover pigmentation like foundation. You can put a bit of hyaluronic acid, but it doesn't actually penetrate.
Okay.
You can wash your face, lipsticks, sunscreen. Those are all cosmetics. they don't change the actual structure of the skin because they don't have these bioactive active ingredients, which cosmeceuticals are. And cosmeceuticals were first termed in 1984 by dermatologists, where pharmaceutical topicals meet cosmetics. So that's why it's called cosmeceuticals, where you have these bioactive contained in these creams, and depending on the cosmeceutical, much higher strength active ingredients.
Dr.
So that's basically the difference.
Sure. Talk to us. I mean, previously cosmeceuticals were only available for aestheticians and not for members of the public. Why is that so, and have things changed since?
These things have changed. Now, if you walk in the aisle, you'll see all these cosmetics. It looks like you're in a foreign country with all these active ingredients in these cosmetics. But you'll find they are much lower strength. So if you have niacinamide or vitamin B3, it will be a lower strength because there's no oversight by a professional person like a skincare doctor or a dermatologist. So they cannot afford to take a chance and have these high active strength ingredients for the lay people who are just purchasing it in a departmental store or in a pharmacy. So that's the difference. The difference is that you will find that some of these cosmetics now have these active ingredients, but they are at a much lower strength.
Sure. And I would imagine that the active ingredients are quite volatile. So the storage thereof, let's just talk about the storage thereof and the use of them as well. When would be the right time to use? You can give us an example.
Active ingredient.
Right.
What I say, if you've got a skin condition, then I would say you need to go to a professional because many people don't realize that these skin conditions like acne, eczema, even hormonal pigmentation called melasma, rosacea, they all come with impaired barrier. So that means so the barrier is the top layer of the skin, and then you've got your skin cells called corneocytes, and they are the bricks of the skin. And then you have these lipids and these ceramides that are the glue that keep the skin together. But because like an acne person that's got, a much higher oil production, that interferes with that barrier. And the barrier keeps all the viruses and all the toxins and environmental aggressors from entering into the skin. So it's very important that you must bear in mind that if you do have an active skin condition, like I mentioned, you need to first repair the barrier. So if you're going to put these active ingredients, even if they're low-strength active ingredients onto your skin, you're going to find that you're going to become sensitized, you're going to become red, you're going to get flaky, you're actually going to compromise the barrier even further.
Sure.
And that's why I say, just take the guesswork out, and instead of spending money on products that aren't really working for you and aggravating your condition, come get expert advice, and then you can go from there. And I can tell you a story about one of our patients. I mean, I had many stories, but she was a chef in the kitchen, and she noticed that she was getting pigmentation. But she didn't know that the pigmentation was from the heat of all the pots and from the flaming oven when she opened the oven. Her barrier was impaired, but she didn't even know that. And, to decide whether you have an impaired barrier is that you have got sensitive skin. So she went off to a department store or a pharmacy, I think it was, and she bought these ingredients for pigmentation. And by the time 2-3 months was over, you cannot believe how her pigmentation had darkened. And then she realized now she really needs help because she actually cannot even go out looking, like she was looking, because she had post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from all the sensitivity of these active ingredients that she put on her skin. So that's why it's important, especially if you've got a skin condition.
All right.
Dr. Marine, you mentioned that the over-the-counter, cosmetic products, some may contain small elements of active ingredients, and marketers are getting smarter and smarter in how they're advertising these products, making it sound as if it can do everything. How can consumers protect themselves? What are they to look out for when they're buying over-the-counter products to aid their conditions if they have not obviously gone to an expert first? What do we need to look out for? Are there special ingredients we need to look out for, and in what quantities do we need to see them on that label to make us believe that it's worth spending money on it?
Yes, that's very important. And on that bottle, there should be all the INCI ingredients, INCI ingredients.
Yeah.
And then you can see whether there's retinol, whether there's glycolic acid, whether there's alpha-hydroxy acid. But very often those are written in the INCI terms, so most people don't even recognize these names. You know, like we know that retinol, but the INCI term is different.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so you've got to be very careful. And then it will say, you know, like skincare or medical grade products, or it'll have something else, you know, than just a plain cosmetic.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, there's no regulatory oversight on these products. So people can just go out there to produce these products and claim these benefits, and which sometimes aren't even true. And you've got to be so careful. You cannot say that it treats pigmentation. You say it may assist in, you know, improving pigmentation. You cannot make these claims because that's totally what you're not allowed to do. Even with our products, you know, our medical grade skincare, because we have a skincare range called Skin Renewal. And even those products, we have to be so careful. We have to have all these INCI ingredients, and we cannot make claims that it treats eczema or treats acne. You cannot say that. So that's why you've got to be so careful. And very often people don't know the strength of those ingredients when they're actually purchasing them. But on the whole, the average person is going to be okay. But it's just when you've got a compromised, you know, skin barrier, you know, that you may run into problems if you start putting very, you know, these active ingredients onto your skin.
And Dr. Maureen, with the introduction of ingredients that have active ingredients at stores, so your drugstores, they are also, you know, products that yourselves, you estheticians and doctors prescribe, right? Once after one has had a facial or whatever treatment with you. Is there a difference then in the percentage of active ingredients from the products that I would find from you to use at home versus the ones in the stores?
Yes, absolutely. That's the difference. So the medical grade skincare and doctor strength topicals are definitely got a much higher active ingredient. So instead of being like a 0.1%, we might have a 1%, which is 10 times stronger. So that's the difference, you know, when you're buying it over the counter or when you're coming into an aesthetic clinic or going to a dermatologist and getting doctor prescribed topical.
Okay, so I thought it was just the difference was only with the ones that you actually use on a client's skin when they are consulting with you, and not necessarily the ones that you'd also prescribe for home use. Okay, so that's very interesting.
Yeah.
No, look, for home use, we do prescribe and they take it home. So they do the in-clinic treatment. We make sure before we even start anything, we make sure that that barrier is prepped. That's why we call prepping the prepping phase. And then 2 weeks later, when that skin is more acceptable to the, you know, to the in-clinic treatments like peels and lasers, then you can come in because now we have prepped the skin. So that's why it's so important, especially if you're going to be doing in-clinic treatments.
How does one, I mean, you've mentioned the protection of one's skin barrier quite a few times, and that seems to be an important component in in whether products are going to be, you know, successful once used topically. How does one protect their skin barrier?
Okay, so you must make sure that you put something on that's going to, so either an occlusive barrier like, you know, Vaseline or petroleum jelly. You get glycerine that's going to protect your layer. And then you get hyaluronic acid that's going to protect your layer. So you wash with you don't wash with very, you know, very high strength, you know, washing foam. You do, so if you are prone to a dry skin, then you use like gel cleanser or a lotion cleanser. Then you put your serum on, and then you trap the moisture in almost immediately with a moisturizer, and then obviously SPF for the day. So it's very important to trap that moisture in as soon as you've actually washed your skin and not leave it for much later, because then you'll find that your skin is still dry. And the same applies when you're getting out of the shower. Not too hot showers, because that can impair your barrier as well, very hot showers. And then as soon as you get off, gently, pat yourself down. Don't scrub yourself with a very rough towel, and then apply your moisturizer almost immediately to trap that moisture in. So those are ways you can protect your barrier, your skin's barrier. And especially important now that we're coming into the winter season where it's dry outside. You go inside where we have this heat which further dries out the ambient moisture. So all I can say is in the winter months, it's just 3 words: hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Hydrate, drink enough water, make sure that the ambient air inside you can run like a humidifier to improve, especially if you've got heaters and fires on inside.
Aircon.
Yes, aircon, that you don't dry that thing out, and then drink enough water as well. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
Dr. Marine, share some of the top-selling products from Skin Renewal and what people are using it for.
Okay, so very often we've got a lot of patients with hormonal pigmentation, melasma. We live in sunny South Africa, and unfortunately, most of the sun damage occurs before the age of 20. So when you're young and you're adventurous and you think nothing can happen to you, that's when all the sun damage is occurring. And that's where you get a skin condition called solar elastosis, which means sun-damaged skin. And then by the time you get you have a baby, or you get to like 28, 30, you'll notice that you start developing this mask, this brown pigmentation mask on your face. And that's when patients usually start looking for pigmentation creams and that. And they'll also notice that the skin is quite sensitive because, once again, your barrier's been impaired. Okay? So those are the most important, that's a very big one would be melasma, skin pigmentation due to hormones, due to sun damage. And then another big one would be acne. We treat a lot of acne patients. Okay, so those are the main, I would say those are the main products for young people. And then obviously for the older ladies, it would be antioxidants to give an extra protection for all the oxidative stress, which means the free radicals that we produce just from living. Everything we do produces free radicals. Yeah. The food we eat, the inflammatory foods that we eat produce free radicals. So the antioxidants. So I tell my patients, especially if you're older, you need to be on grass. Okay?
On grass.
And not the kind you smoke. And no, I'm not sending you out. I'm not sending you out in the field to go chew grass.
We hope not.
But it's a good way of remembering what older skins need. So number one, growth factors and peptides. So these are signaling cells that when you put them on the skin, they actually signal deep in the dermis to start stimulating collagen. Those are the growth factors and peptides. And then the R would be retinoids, which is vitamin A. And then you get many different kinds of retinoids. And the one that I like and what we have for our medical skin grade, our Skin Renewal one, is the Grand Active Retinoid. It's a special form of retinoid, picolinate, which is a very fancy term, but what it does, it produces less sensitivity than the normal retinol because it doesn't have to convert in the skin to retinoic acid. It immediately produces retinoic acid, vitamin A. So the retinols and the growth factors, they stimulate collagen. Then the A from the grass would be antioxidants, and they protect the collagen you have. So we're talking vitamin C, we're talking pycnogenol, which is an incredible product. We're talking ferulic acid, ferulate, vitamin E, all those powerful antioxidants, like vitamin C. So you put it on in the morning because not only does it mop up all the free radicals from the sun's radiation, but it also forms a protective shield with your sunblock. So it makes your sunblock almost like a higher SPF. You have more protection from your sunblock if you put vitamin C underneath. Then the S would be specialty products, which would be melasma, acne, rosacea, eczema, or anti-aging where you want higher strength, again, anti-aging serum. And then last but not least is SPF, sunscreen.
Yeah.
And that you have to make sure it's UVA, UVB sunscreen. That's the minimum that you have to put on your skin. And the minimum of 30, and it does go higher, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if it's higher, like a 50 or 100, that you can stay in the sun for longer. It doesn't work like
Or not
that.
have
So
to
that's-
reapply, doctor.
Yes, absolutely. And
Right.
you have to, if you're out in the sun, you have to reapply every hour at least. And if you come out of the water or, like you're sweating a lot, you have to reapply.
Dr. Maureen, we are out of time.
no.
Unfortunately, I know. We still had a lot to learn. I wanted to find out more about the grass that you ingest, right? So in the form of collagen powders and whether those are good enough. No, but seriously, and also the matchas and all in all.
Yeah.
But we have run out of time. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, the two of you. Thank you.
That is Dr. Maureen Allam, and sharing so much about skin and taking care of ourselves topically, not only topically, but also cosmeceutically. And Dr. Maureen Allam is the founder and medical director of Skin Renewal. It is a minute after 2 Central African time on Linzinzi. What is the latest in news?
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Mpumi. Looking at your top stories, South Africa, Malawi and Tanzanian troops well on their way out of the DRC, and Indian-administered Kashmir closes 48 tourist destinations to the public. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The process of withdrawing soldiers and equipment from Goma and Sake in the Democratic Republic of Congo by the South African, Malawi and Tanzanian government has started. The troops were part of the SADC mission in the DRC to assist Congo's government in their fight with the M23 rebels. South African National Defence Union Chief Negotiator Jeff Dubazani explains.
Probably it would be easy if it was only soldiers that are supposed to be withdrawn. But then in this instance, it's supposed to be soldiers together with their military equipment. So that becomes an odorous process to be accomplished. In our calculation, we think it could even, the whole process last up until next year. What would they be aware of is that there are moves to withdraw soldiers from the DRC. There hasn't been any casualties or any injured people reported arising out of the situation in the DRC, specifically in Goma and Sake.
South Africa says the people of Gaza are under a complete siege from Israel. This morning, the International Court of Justice was hearing submissions from different countries. ICJ has opened hearings to gauge Israel's responsibility for the humanitarian crisis that's engulfing Gaza during its war against Hamas. The hearings, which began on Monday in The Hague, will run throughout the week. This follows a request last year from the United Nations General Assembly asking the court to assess Israel's responsibility to ensure the provision of essential supplies to Gaza. International Relations Director General Zain Dango says Israel has blatantly ignored its obligation as stipulated by the international law.
Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said on 16 April 2025, and I quote, Israel's policy is clear. No humanitarian aid is about to enter Gaza. There are no preparations to enable such aid. Under the world's watchful eye, Palestinians across the occupied Palestinian territories are being subjected to atrocity crimes, persecution, apartheid, and genocide.
A UN panel of experts monitoring sanctions in Sudan is investigating how mortar rounds exported from Bulgaria to the United Arab Emirates ended up in a supply convoy for the Rapid Support Forces militia fighters. This is detailed in a letter seen by news agencies Reuters. Mortar rounds seized from the convoy in November in the Darfur region bore the same serial number as those Bulgaria told United Nations investigators that it had exported to the UAE in 2019. The serial number was visible in photos and videos posted online by pro-government militia members following the seizure. Bulgaria told the UN investigators that it had shipped 81mm mortar rounds with the same serial number to the UAE military. The latter has previously denied repeated accusations that it is fueling conflict by arming the RSF in its war against the Sudan army. Despite improvement in the Central African Republic, most of the population remains vulnerable to violence, disaster and health emergencies. That says according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The country has faced years of instability. OCHA reports that this year, 38% of the population is so vulnerable that humanitarian aid alone will not be sufficient to ensure their well-being. The deputy head of office for OCHA in the Central African Republic, Tobias Schultz, explains.
Really, we need to work two different elements at the same time. One, from our side, mobilize the humanitarian resources to respond for those people who are still exposed to shocks, while at the same time also engaging with countries to mobilize not only humanitarian resources, but also engage with the government to strengthen their capacity to deliver basic services. So really what we would like to see here in the Central African Republic, as we hopefully continue to slowly and progressively phase out, to see humanitarian development actors stepping in and the Central African Republican government to play a much more predominant role in this evolving context.
Lastly, the authorities in Indian-administered Kashmir have closed 48 tourist destinations to the public in a bid to tighten security after last week's attack on holiday makers. Gunmen shot dead 26 men at close range in the Palagram area. The BBC's Anbarasan Etirajan.
Officials said the tourist locations which had been shut were in remote areas of Indian-administered Kashmir and include some of the new destinations opened in the past 10 years. Nestled in the Himalayas with snow-capped mountains and picturesque valleys, Kashmir has been emerging as India's tourism hotspot as violence there has waned in recent years. More than 3 million people visited the region last year. The latest attack has triggered tensions between India and Pakistan, which both claim Kashmir in full but administer it only in part.
Now, recapping all your top stories, the process of withdrawing soldiers and equipment from Goma and Sake in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, by the South African, Malawi and Tanzanian governments has been started. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Nine minutes after 2 p.m. Central African Time. This is The Upside with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekhuleni. Welcome on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to say beautiful until the end of the show because it is a beautiful day outside and we're hoping that you are enjoying it. We are broadcasting live from the Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. How's your first day back at work going? It was a holiday yesterday in South Africa.
What do you mean first day back at work?
For those
who are working the 2 days and then taking off for the rest of the week.
Because there's a holiday on Thursday, Workers' Day, and then some would have taken the Friday off, so you're only working technically today and tomorrow.
It is a bit disorientating for me, all these holidays, I must say. Even though I've been working throughout all of them,
why is it disorientating
because you're so used to seeing certain people.
Yeah.
There's also an energy about the weekday that's not, one day it is, tomorrow it's not going to be, because people will be making their ways to their various destinations. And if you are going away, let us know where you are going away to. It is the second hour of The Upside. We're going to be speaking to Mia Arden, who is an author. I am intrigued about this latest in her novels, and it is 1,000 Eyes on You. It's a captivating, spellbinding novel that we're going to get into when we come back. But for now, it's 10 minutes after 2 Central African time. Do check us out on various social media platforms. It's at Channel Africa 1 everywhere except Facebook.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege.
Say, Nana, say, Nana, say.
That is just me trying to imagine myself as a backup singer for Zonke, because her music is just beautiful. As the song was playing, I was just, moving like a backup singer. You know how they are. They with their hands, being so dramatic and, putting that spice into the song. So the song is called Say Now, and we love it here on the Midnight Snack. I hope you also love it.
Let's talk love, intimacy, and relationships on the Midnight Snack with Chanduko Ligege. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
We continue with our coverage of recent arrests of activists and journalists in Harare during Monday's mass stay-away and protest. Dr. Tadini Masaya, who's the Secretary for the Information and Media of the United Zimbabwe Alliance, an opposition party founded in March 2022.
Every Zimbabwean is entitled to expressing themselves, whether they are ZANU-PF or they belong to any other political party or they do not. So what Geza and those that believed in his code did is within their rights. However, we also fully acknowledge that it is an internal fight, and as UZA, we did not participate in that internal fight. We are not going to be used as pawns as what happened in 2017 to usher in a different face for ZANU-PF. It does not matter who is the face of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is going to remain the same.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Your afternoons just got even better, fresh and exciting. The Upside, hooking you up with today's news from an African perspective.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, what is all of this?
Can I not enjoy a song in peace?
Oh my goodness.
19 minutes past 2 p.m. Central African Time. Forgive our trespasses.
Hey, we all need it.
We all know it. We all need it.
Do you not need your trespasses forgiven?
Nandipa 808 and Is it Siga? It's Sika. I always say Siga, but then
Sika? RSA?
People correct me like, no, it's Sika. Sika RSA featuring Demola. Forgive our trespasses. It's 19 minutes past 2 p.m. And this is The Upside with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekhuleni. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Channel Africa. We are about to get into a conversation about indigenous, what's the word? Indigenous mythology and cosmic romance.
Yeah.
A conversation that I know you at home are very interested in, because I am.
I am utterly intrigued and enthralled by this. We are speaking to Mia Arden, who's an author, and she has penned the A Thousand Eyes on You, and it really is a captivating urban fantasy which weaves together indigenous mythology, like Tebogo said, as well as cosmic romance. I mean, we're going to be finding out from her what that is about. But it is a journey following Kayla, a teenage girl who discovers that she is not entirely human. All right. And Mia is joining us on the line. Mia, hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right. I mean, firstly, let's talk about the marriage of cosmic romance as well as indigenous mythology. What are two different genres to be brought together? Tell us the inspiration behind this.
Sure. So just in terms of genre, it's a young adult fantasy. So there are many elements of the fantastical and paranormal, and it's a love story between two teenagers in high school. So it's kind of what they're calling a romantasy. I mean, I don't know if I love that name, but that's
I love it.
So it was really inspired by this idea of love that's cosmically doomed. So the more two people start to fall in love with each other, the further they are torn apart by elements in the cosmos. So these two characters, one starts to find themselves drawn to the world of the sea and the ocean, and the other is drawn to the world of the sky. And those are the paranormal elemental worlds that exist in the book.
All right. I mean, it sounds really, really captivating. We're going to take a short break, Mia. When we come back, we'll take the conversation. It is 22 minutes after 2 Central African time.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons accueillir sur ces plateaux de Mix Vibration un artiste pas comme les autres. Il est exceptionnel. Il se classe résolument dans la trajectoire des artistes qui défendent le patrimoine du folklore africain, mais aussi de la rumba. Ici, Jérémy Tchani.
En tout cas, je vous dis merci à la Channel Africa, à tout le monde qui nous suit. Dans la vie, si tu veux aller loin, il faut comprendre les temps. Il y a ceux-là qui étaient dans leur temps, mais à cause d'une mauvaise conduite, à cause des gens qui l'accompagnait, à cause de sa famille, à cause beaucoup de choses, son temps passé.
Voilà, donc il faut toujours gérer le temps. Chaque chose a son temps, dit-on. Et la couronne ne dure pas éternellement, dit-on. Donc il faut toujours gérer le temps que Dieu vous a donné sur la terre. C'est le message que Jérémy Tchani nous amène aujourd'hui sur Mix Vibration à Channel Africa.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Whatever you want to hear about today's talk, you can only get it on the upside. Every weekday, 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 23 minutes after 2 Central African Time. We are still in conversation with our guest. She is an author, and she has penned a wonderful romantasy. I know that you don't like that that title, and that is titled "A Thousand Eyes on You." Mia's joining us on the line.
Mia, you seem to have a fascination for the supernatural. I mean, we go back to your debut book, Mermaid Fillet, and now we are talking about the world of the sky and the world of the sea. Talk to us about your fascination for the supernatural.
Sure. So I've always enjoyed magic realism as my favorite genre to read and to write. I really like the idea of incorporating magic, but magic into the real world. So as opposed to high fantasy, I like writing magic rules and magic scenes into like our lived reality. So you have mermaid tales being sold on the black market here in South Africa, and you have fairies in and out of the concrete metropolis of Cape Town. So what I try and do and what I enjoy about it is this idea of splicing magic with the physical world and our kind of local physical world.
Sure. I mean, I think those are worlds that people would rather not even entertain, right? And just because of the realism or the element of realism for it. But tell us let's go back to A Thousand Eyes on You. If you can just tell us about the protagonist, Kayla. What makes her journey particularly resonate you said that the book is based on a young teenage love. What makes her story resonate with young readers today?
So the protagonist, Kayla, she suffers from chronic depression. She's a depressed teenage girl, really, and she inherits a book of spells from her grandmother. So I think what might resonate with teenagers today in South Africa is that Kayla's quite misunderstood. She doesn't feel very seen by the world, and then sort of dissolves into her own little the pages of the spell book, into her own reality. And I think for many teenagers, they do, for one, struggle with things like mental illness, and it's a less stigmatized conversation. She is bisexual, so it looks at queer identity. It looks at issues and themes that I think are realities in the lives of this generation, or that are really spoken about a bit more. And so Kayla's character is one that is quite honest with herself about those facets of her identity.
And Mia, how do you go about addressing some of the challenges in your own personal life? I assume writing is one way of escapism, if you will, but what are other ways that you go about dealing with mental health issues, trauma? How do you go about doing it?
Well, it's been a hell of a journey. I've learned how to deal with it better, maybe over the last couple of years. But when I was in high school, for example, I really struggled. I was undiagnosed. I was a complete mess. I've dealt with it kind of better now through therapy, through medication, through a brief period of institutionalization. So it was only really after I learned how to speak about it and accept help, and actively worked on my mental health, which is really maybe the last 3 years of my life that I started dealing with it a bit better.
Sure. There is an element of dealing with generational trauma. Tell us about how that plays into the various characters' development.
Right. So with I wanted to look at more than just our youngest generation. So there are character arcs playing out with these protagonists' parents as well, and their trauma, and their grandparents as well. So I, for example, interviewed my mother and my grandmother because I wanted an idea of real lived experience. So my grandmother was evicted during the Group Areas Act. I interviewed her as to what that was like, tell me what she experienced. My mother also was in detention during the state of emergency. So I sat them both down, got an idea of family lineage, of real generational trauma to inform the older characters in the book, and then try to kind of avenge those, because they are crimes really that were done to, I think, many of our parents and grandparents. And the magic of this book, curse those oppressors and those abusers in fiction in a way that perhaps we couldn't curse them in, during their lifetimes. So that's how I tried to kind of honor our history. I wanted to do it in a way that looked at real people. I think we could all maybe benefit from interviewing or just speaking to our parents and grandparents.
Mia, I must interject there. I mean, apologies to do so. Absolutely. I think that when you say there must be some kind of, we can all benefit 150%. There's nothing more powerful than to speak to your elders, right? But also just to get an insight of why aspects of your life may be the way that you are. Also just as a way of understanding yourself. So absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that you can just benefit from in terms of your own enrichment. Understanding yourself, understanding your lineage is so important. And I think a lot of South Africans maybe don't have access to it. In the so racialized colored community, for example, there is a lot of erasure there. And so if you don't get stories kind of word of mouth, a lot of that history is actually lost. So it's something that I absolutely think everybody should do.
And Mia, where can people find this book?
So the book is available at most big retailers, exclusive books, Wordsworth, those kinds of retailers. It should be at most of them.
Love it.
And where do we find you on social media platforms if people want to invite you for talks and such?
So I'm on most social media platforms. On Instagram, my handle is @Mia_Ardern. And same on Facebook and on Twitter and recently on TikTok. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, yay, welcome. Mia, thank you so much for your time. Absolutely fascinating stuff. I wish that we had more time to just delve deeper into that brain of yours, but also the works that you have created. But I suppose no better ways of doing that than to read 1,000 eyes on you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, it is 30 minutes after 2 Central African time. We head on over now to sports news. Musibudi Makura, what's happening?
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Nompumelelo. This is our leading story this hour. So Stellenbosch FC coach Steve Barker continues to uphold his view that VAR is a much-needed technology in the PSL. He was speaking of Stellenbosch FC were eliminated from the CAF Confederation Cup semi-finals by Simba SC on the back of 2 penalty decisions being overturned and a Stellenbosch FC goal disallowed on Sunday. Now, Simba won the tie 1-0 on aggregate, having beaten Stellenbosch FC in Zanzibar a week ago, but Barker did not have sour grapes.
Look, I've always advocated for VAR, to be in our league. If decisions don't go away you, and it was basically, where you've had opportunity to look and make the right decision, I think it's the right way going forward. I do think, unfortunately, last week the VAR decision was left again in the referee's hands to make a decision whether the player was impeding Oscar or not, which I felt that he was. So I don't think that should have been awarded a goal. Today, unfortunately, I haven't had opportunity to look at all the VAR decisions, so it would be unwise for me to comment on it. I have been told that the goal we scored was marginally offside, so...
Right, so Simba now will progress to the final with an all-South African technical team led by Fadlu Davids, and Barker has wished Simba all the best of luck ahead of the final.
Obviously disappointed, but at the same time, wish Fadlu and Darian and all the South African technical staff of Simba all the best in the final. It was a hard-fought game over 2 legs, a game of a lot of fine margins.
On to netball news now. Zimbabwe Netball Association President Letitia Chipandu has called for collaboration amongst African teams and saying it's very important as this will help grow the sport on the African continent. Chipandu joined other dignitaries for the 2025 South African Telkom Netball League opening ceremony at the Sun City Super Bowl in the Northwest Province yesterday. She also accompanies the Zimbabwe national team, which is part of the 18 teams competing for the championship. Chipandu adds that she's happy to see the Zambezi Eagles feeding from one of the top nations in netball on the African continent.
No, I believe together we will conquer. As individuals, we don't perform much. We saw this as an opportune time for us to network with South Africa, partnering with South Africa. South Africa is the biggest sister in Africa in netball. They have position 5 in the world, and we believe we will be learning from the best in Africa.
At the same time, she confirmed that the Zimbabwe national team is using the Telkom Netball League to build up for the 2027 World Cup qualifiers. She adds that despite the slow start to the league, the team is headed in the right direction and encourages them to learn from the other top teams in this year's league.
I am happy with the performance so far. We started sluggishly, slow, but we are picking up as time is moving. And I would want to say to the technical team or to the coaches that they need to be very vigilant, make sure that the girls are watching the other games that are being played, and then they learn the different movements, the different tactics that they see being employed, and then also implement as they train in practice.
And finally, Australian Max Purcell has accepted an 18-month ban for breaching anti-doping rules in a case the 2-time Grand Slam doubles champion said had been seriously affecting his quality of health. The player, who was provisionally suspended in December of 2024, admitted to use of a prohibited method of receiving infusions of over 500 millilitres of vitamins on the 16th and the 20th of December 2023. The 27-year-old, whose major titles came at Wimbledon in 2022 and the 2024 US Open, did not test positive for a banned substance. According to the International Tennis Integrity Agency, the ITIA, limit under the World Anti-Doping Code is 100 millilitres in a 12-hour period. So in a statement, it also added, following a full investigation by the ITIA, which included evidence gathering as well as interviews with the player, Purcell admitted to the breaches. The player's full cooperation as well as information sharing with the ITIA allowed for a 25% reduction in sanction. Meanwhile, his ban will officially end on the 11th of June 2026 after taking into account the time he has already served. That's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. It's exactly 14:36 p.m. Central African Time for Channel Africa Sport. I am Mosibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
All right, thanks, Musibudi, for that update. Coming up in the business news is Bontle Headbush, and she's going to be giving us the very latest coming out of the continent.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Mbumi, and good afternoon to our listeners. Our top story this afternoon, South Africa's Minister of Energy and Electricity, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, has embarked on a working visit to Botswana yesterday, where he held discussions with his counterpart, Bogolo Kenewendo. The visit was aimed at strengthening the two countries' strategic partnership in the energy and electricity sectors. The head of communications and stakeholder relations at South Africa's Ministry of Energy and Electricity, Tsakane Kambane, explains.
The visit aims to strengthen the two nations' strategic partnership in the energy and electricity sectors. The ministers had the opportunity to discuss potential collaborations on new energy generation and supply, as well as enhancing interconnectivity and aligning policies to improve efficiency and synergies in our energy systems.
South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the country's G20 presidency is a crucial chance for Africa to advance its economic and developmental priorities on the global stage. Speaking in Pretoria at the opening of a two-day T20 high-level dialogue today, Mashatile highlighted the importance of strengthening Africa's voice within the G20, a group that represents 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade. Mashatile explains.
The South African G20 presidency provides us with an opportunity to take meaningful steps towards addressing economic and developmental issues in Africa. Since 1999, South Africa has been a member of the G20, which accounts for 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade. This group is crucial for global economic cooperation.
Small Business Development Minister Stellan in South Africa is South Africa's next gold mine, and it's important that everyone, including those in the townships and villages, benefit from it. She was speaking at the first provincial G20 launch taking place in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province over the next 2 days. The overall theme of the roadshow will be the marine and oceans economy, under the theme The Oceans Economy, the next South African gold mine. This will be the first leg of the event, focusing on issues of the marine and oceans economy.
We've got a group of cooperatives from Gqeberha and other surrounding areas who have been given fishing rights, and we're trying to assist them because most of them, they will complain that they don't have infrastructure. They are forced to go and fish, but they don't have access to market. As a result, they're being exploited.
Several former traders from major Shell have set up trading house African Trading Minerals, backed by Afrexim Bank, to focus on African oil trading. Sources say the move takes place as oil majors and Western banks retreat from Africa, and at a time where the continent is facing a decline in oil and gas production due to underinvestment. The continent spends $30 billion annually on fuel imports. Billions of barrels of oil and gas in Africa are at risk of being stranded as a race among global producers is heating up.
Central Madrid is a far cry from the image that many people will have of it. A lot of streets have been plunged into darkness and many of the restaurants and bars closed early. You can see police in the street directing the cars because the traffic lights in many places still aren't working.
Moving on to the indicators, 1 US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606 in Botswana. It's 13 pula 60. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 527, and in Zambia it's at 27 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 67, Russia 82 rubles 34, India at 85 rupees 20, China 7 yuan 29, and South Africa $1 is trading at 18 rand 61. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,311 and platinum at $985 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $65.27 per barrel. For any business news that you might have, please share them with us on Channel Africa. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So the artist that I just played now went by the name A.B. Crystal. So A standing for Alfred, B for Benjamin. What's your take on people having two names? Is it because maybe you can't decide on a name?
I've heard people saying that they are named because of whatever that was happening around.
These are also seasonal. I'm sure now a baby born in the Eastern Cape is called Nama Tarif.
You see now. Or it was a born baby when it was, what do you call these things we used to pay for men driving?
Nama Itol.
Nama Itol, listen.
Well, Nama Confident is living.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. No matter where you are, Channel Africa is always with you.
When a good girl gone bad, what you gonna do?
featuring Panto Ranking.
I don't suppose you have a journal?
No.
Shame. Even if you did, you wouldn't say no because you need to be macho and maintain some
I
kind
am
of...
man.
We will see.
I internalize things.
All right, so I suppose there's no point in asking you because I was going to ask who makes it to your journal. Do they need to have hurt you a lot? Do they need to have touched you significantly? Who would make it?
Yeah, wrong audience, wrong person
All
to
right,
ask
okay,
in terms of
he's
this.
a man.
No, simply because I don't write, I don't do the journaling
Dear
thing,
diary
right?
at the
Dear
end of each
diary,
day. Okay.
dear diary.
I had a good show today.
But I think, I don't know, man. I don't know if it would be a daily thing. I think it would be moments that I would capture instead of every single day. Oh, today it was like this and I felt like this. I think it will be moments that, whether happy moments, jovial moments, sad moments, not necessarily the routine of the day. If something somewhat significant happened, I'll probably note that, oh, that was a significant thing that happened today. And I think it's worth noting and writing down so I can reflect on it one day. But as for daily, I don't know. I don't think I would be that person. What about you?
What am I answering?
Who would make it onto your journal?
Oh, okay. Yeah, all the extremities.
All the extremities.
Yeah.
So not the everyday routine.
No.
Debza, when he was in studio today, he always kept backwards. None of that.
No.
Only the extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Extreme happiness, joy, and extreme
That's
pain,
100%.
tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're on the same page with that.
Yeah. Okay. So you would be in my diary basically by now.
Am I an
Before
extremity?
we even started the show, you
I'm
would
an
have been in
extremity?
yeah.
In what
it
way?
It was a bang. I mean, the first time
stop it. I don't know why it took me so long.
You came into my life with a bang. All right.
Story for another day.
I mean, something that probably would stand out if you were to journal every day would be what caught your eye.
It would be. What caught... Okay, I'll start today.
Go ahead.
Because what caught my eyes, let's get it over and done with, because, wow, the fact that it actually happened. Last week, 3 police officers...
Yeah, South
African police officers were, shall we say, allegedly hijacked. Can't say kidnapped. Is that kidnapped? Does that sound right for an adult to be kidnapped?
Well, it depends what the circumstances are. Tell us more.
Mm-hmm. So they were at off-duty cops, 3 of them.
Yeah.
They were at a garage on the N1 South in Johannesburg South. And apparently it became a bit suspicious for the commanding officer the very next day, if I'm not mistaken, when they did not.
All 3 of them.
All 3 of them did not pitch up at work. And then a missing persons report was then filed, and now investigations and detectives have been released and assigned. And now they're also asking the public to assist them. To police and find these officers who have been kidnapped, hijacked, and we don't know where they are.
Oh my.
So my question is, what are we going to do? As the public, what must I do? You are the police? It's not funny. I mean,
really
listen,
isn't.
it's not funny. My question is, as a citizen, what am I capacitated to do? I can share information, sure, fair enough. If there were people who were at the garage and they saw something, please come forward and let the police know, I saw this, I saw that. Perhaps you have a better gauge. But as for us, the rest of the public, what are we going to do?
I think that is exactly what police are then asking for when they say members of the public need to assist.
Yeah.
Any kind of information that you may have. Did you see the VW Polo that they were traveling in?
Yeah.
Is there do you know what they were dressed in the last time you saw them? And you know, those kind of things. Where did they leave from? Who were they with? In which vicinity? But we know that increasingly police officers, especially those who are off duty, are at risk if they travel around with their service pistols, are at the risk of criminals because they want their pistols, right?
Yeah.
But often also, if you are working on a case that is high profile and being under investigation at the time, and you're a police officer, you will then probably also be at risk of being kidnapped. Because you have so much information, and they are still at large. So it has been a week now. So it is very concerning where they are.
It is. We can only hope that they are still alive.
Yeah,
well,
maybe they just went to Devon for a good
maybe
time.
Maybe they just wanted a break.
Yeah,
you know when
just
your
like,
employers, my employer. This manager doesn't
Guys,
understand.
yeah.
I'm under stress.
Yeah.
They don't understand. And especially when you're a cop and you come to another your boss and I'm tired. I've got a lot. I'm dealing with a lot. I just need a break. Maybe together they decided, you know what?
We need a mental health break.
So I'm wondering, where are the cameras at that service station at the garage? Where are the cameras? Did the cameras pick up anything? I'm sure this will be part of the investigations that the detectives will have to then do. But again, if you're as a public, if you saw anything concerning this, please, share your information with the police so that we can get these officers back. Here's the thing.
Safely.
It's not even get them back safely. It's going to be, let's get them back to work. Because there won't be any resting period after this.
No, there must be.
They're going to come back. They're going to go back to work.
No, they must be.
The manager's like, you must come back to work.
And this is why police officers are also often the perpetrators of crime, because they don't take care of their mental health, So hopefully they do return home safely.
What caught your eye, ma'am?
What caught my eye is Minnie Dlamini and Mac G.
What did Mac G do now?
Oh, why didn't you say what did Minnie do now? It's obvious who's the wrong
and it's very sad that
party.
It's very sad that was No, oftentimes it's because the way the media has portrayed Mac G and some of the comments he has made. When you put his name up, you always assume, hey, but Mac G, did you do something? Did Minnie? Okay. Let's find out. What did Minnie do? What did Mac do?
I'm glad that you said, but also the things that he says, because it's not just the media portraying him, innocent little man, as being one way when he isn't. He's trending as well as Minnie because Moja Love, the channel on television, has released a statement in which essentially they are saying that they do not stand by, or in fact, by the derogatory language that Mac G uses towards women on his podcast. You may know that the podcast is now on Moja Love. That they're saying that the objectification of women's bodies and is quite offensive. And as a channel, they don't stand by that. Now, very many questions for me to ask. I don't know necessarily what exactly he said about Minnie. I know that there was some kind of comparison, or he made a link between her failed marriage and her now failed relationship, and said something untoward about her body.
Okay.
And that her body may just be as a result, or the reason why it is that those relationships did not work out. For me, it is concerning because it's the misogyny in what Mac G has to say often in his podcast that gets people talking, right? That has seen the growth and popularity of his podcast. And who is mainly watching those podcasts? Young men. Young men and young women, and they are forming their ideas of who women are as a result from watching Mac G's podcast, because they look up to him. But also, who then governs podcasts? Is there a regulatory body that governs these things? What comes up for you with regards to this?
I was about to say, I don't think it has been clearly defined or established to govern those. The podcasts.
They can say whatever.
The audio visual, because here's the thing. How many times have we, has South Africa sort of cancelled Mac G based on what he has said on the podcast, so on and so forth, calling people or calling brands to pull away their partnerships and so on and so forth, and yet it didn't happen, maybe here and there. But the podcast grew even bigger, the network grew, because it was operating outside of what we now know, the mainstream media, where there's a governing body, there's the BCCSA, where you can then go and complain. But the podcast itself, there are so many gray areas there that now you're taking something that has a very gray area and you're planting it into a mainstream that has some regulatory framework.
Right.
It's going to cause a bit of a friction there. And I say this because it's not the first time that a network or a television who has partnered up with a MacG has come up and said, hey, we are not standing for, we don't agree. But then we're like, the content he posts.
And yet you're the ones
and
who
you
put
are
it
the
on,
one,
on mainstream
and you
television.
take it as is and put it onto your mainstream platform. So then are you, do you have any right to then say, we don't like it? Because why did you agree to it in the first place? Understanding what kind of content he puts out there. So it's those gray areas, and these two worlds now are forced to come together, and we now need to have the governing bodies and regulations to govern it, so that there is accountability when it comes to these relationships.
Very interesting one. Let us know what you make of this. Should there be some kind of regulation where it pertains to podcasts? Because podcasters, someone I know said that podcast equipment needs to be a little bit more expensive so that not every Tom, Dick and Harry can just get a mic and sit and talk nonsense.
But that was the whole
so that
point.
there is some kind of substance.
But that was the whole point.
That everybody has a voice.
Anyone can pick up a microphone, set up an audio interface, do a link, share and talk. Because whatever you're talking about, someone out there wants to listen.
Resonates with. And it would be entertaining for them. All right. Let us know what you make of it. Do you listen to MacG? Do you love him and his perspectives? Let us know why. +2763 406 9126. And should there be a regulatory body that governs the content that comes out of these various podcasts? But there's so many.
Too many.
There's a podcast on everything.
Too many. How do you go about doing that? That's the danger of it. But also therein lies an opportunity as well.
Yeah. All right. Onelen Zinzi, are you starting a podcast soon, or do you have one that we don't know about?
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Well, definitely not that one, but I unfortunately live with someone who listens to MacG, religiously. So, unfortunately, I have to as well. Anyway, looking at your top stories, Rwanda and the DRC agreed to come up with a draft peace deal, and Indian-administered Kashmir closes 48 tourist destinations to the public. Your latest news, greetings to our listeners. The government of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to come up with a draft peace deal by May the 2nd to end the conflict that has wrecked the east of the DRC for more than 3 years. The ministers of foreign affairs of both countries signed a declaration in the United States. Chris Okamringa reports.
The DRC and Rwanda have committed to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. They also agreed to stop providing military support to non-state armed groups. The two countries also committed to facilitate the repatriation of Congolese refugees who fled to neighboring countries. They are expected to come up with a draft of the implementation of the peace agreement by May 2nd. Qatar and the US are mediating talks between the DRC and Rwanda to end the war and facilitate trade deals in the lucrative mining sector for their private firms.
Meanwhile, the process of withdrawing soldiers and equipment from Goma and Sake in the Democratic Republic of Congo by the South African, Malawi and Tanzanian governments has started. The troops were part of the SADC mission in the DRC to assist Congo's government in the fight with the M23 rebels. South African National Defence Union Chief Negotiator Jeff Dubazani explains.
probably it would be easy if it was only soldiers that are supposed to be withdrawn. But then in this instance, it's supposed to be soldiers together with their military equipment. So that becomes an odorous process to be accomplished. In our calculation, we think it could even, the whole process last up until next year. What would they be aware of is that there are moves to withdraw soldiers from the DRC. There hasn't been any casualties or any injured people reported arising out of the situation in the DRC, specifically in Goma and Sake.
South Africa's legal representative at the International Court of Justice, Jamian Hendricks, told the court that Israel cannot use starvation as a weapon of war. The ICJ has opened hearings to gauge Israel's responsibility for the humanitarian crisis that's engulfing Gaza during its war against Hamas. Hendricks says Israel has deployed full range of technique of hunger and starvation in Gaza.
International law prohibits Israel from the use of starvation as a method of warfare, including under siege or blockade. Israel may not collectively punish the protected Palestinian population, which it holds under unlawful occupation. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, in his report of 17 July 2024, stated, "Starvation reflects a state's fundamental abandonment of its human rights obligations."
Road fatalities in South Africa over the Easter weekend reduced drastically this year by almost 50% as compared to the same period in 2024. This was announced by the Transport Minister Barbara Creecy during a media briefing in Pretoria. The highest number of fatalities were recorded in the Eastern Cape province with 28 deaths, followed by the KwaZulu-Natal province with 27 fatalities. Minister Creecy explains.
Fatalities were reduced from 307 over the Easter weekend in 2024 to 167 in 2025, which is a 45% decrease. All provinces recorded decreases in fatalities except Mpumalanga, where there was a small increase. There were 28 fatalities in Mpumalanga compared with 22 in 2024.
Lastly, despite improvement in the Central African Republic, most of the population remains vulnerable to violence, disaster and health emergencies. This is according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The country has faced years of instability. OCHA reports that in this year, 38% of the population is so vulnerable that humanitarian aid alone will not be sufficient to ensure their well-being. The Deputy Head of Office for OCHA in the Central African Republic, Tobias Schultz, explains.
Really, we need to work two different elements at the same time. One, from our side, mobilize the humanitarian resources to respond for those people who are still exposed to shocks, while at the same time also engaging with countries to mobilize not only humanitarian resources, but also engage with the government to strengthen their capacity to deliver basic services. So really what we would like to see here in the Central African Republic, as we hopefully continue to slowly and progressively phase out, to see development actors stepping in and the Central African Republican government to play a much more predominant role in this evolving context.
Recapping on your top stories, the governments of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to come up with a draft peace deal by the 2nd of May in order to assist in ending the conflict that has wrecked the east of the DRC for more than 3 years. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
7 minutes past 3 p.m. Central African Time. Welcome to the final hour of The Upside with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekhuleni. We are broadcasting live from the Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much for choosing Channel Africa. You can stream us live on the SABC Plus app. Download it on your Android or iOS device. Catch us on DSTV channel 802 or on OpenView channel 628. And don't forget to hit that like and follow button on social media where you can stream us as well at Channel Africa 1 on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and at Channel Africa on Facebook. Use the hashtag The Upside. Earlier I was asking a question. What would you ever give up a bag to spend quality time with your person? I made reference of Alicia Keys' husband, Swizz Beatz, remembering a time, reflecting on a time when Alicia Keys turned down $9 million for a 9-minute performance so that they can have quality time with one another. And I asked, would you do the same? I mean, she comes from her situation comes from a place of privilege, so I'm able to, and I don't mind. But would you give up the bag for quality time? Nompumelelo?
Yeah.
You would give up the bag for quality time?
Yeah.
You have no price for your peace?
I have no price for my peace.
Or something that can distract that peace? Take away that peace?
I just don't like maybe let's rephrase that question, because also the assumption here is that I know I'm being pedantic, I know I'm not being a sport, but the piece is not coming from the person, you know what I mean? It's coming from
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And it also depends, I'd only do it for a husband, for instance.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it for
a boyfriend.
No, man.
All right. A situationship. Okay.
But I would do it. Absolutely. Like, given the right circumstances, there are no questions asked. He's my husband. I'm in love. Of course. Of course. This, what we have, comes first.
Well, let us know. +27 63 406 9126.
You wouldn't.
I think it's important for us to talk about what's coming up in this final hour. And what's coming up in this hour is,
that means
we are talking
that
about
if
podcasts.
you are home and you are the host partner, just think twice, maybe. Okay,
it's a good thing we're single.
The money will come before you. Just know that.
No, it's not gonna be the case. No, there are certain things that are just more important than money. Money you can make any other time.
Definitely.
Quality time that you can't get back.
Definitely, because I think we forget that the point of it all are the giggles, are playing, having fun. That is the point.
Absolutely.
With your loved ones. So
absolutely.
No.
There's a podcast academy coming up.
There is soon. In June from the 7th to the 11th of July.
That's exciting.
It will be hosted by the French Institute of South Africa, as well as the South African Podcasting Guild and the Goethe Institute Johannesburg. Or Goethe.
Did you say Goethe?
Goethe?
I think we'll find out.
Let's go get some music, okay? We'll find out how to pronounce it, but also how you can apply, who is the right person for this training program. It's 11 minutes after 3 Central African Time.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Midday vibes, great programming, and good company. This is Channel Africa.
And this way niyami Kale sakis king Buga wahle You don't believe Jesus Wait Take komunye Uwe wena wet Ti exact ne bat Slim ngempela How could it let you go and poison in ngempela How could it let you go back that way in ngempela Ngabheke emehlweni yeah
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Join Tebucho and Nompumelelo on the upside, where optimism meets opportunity.
17 minutes after 3 Central African time. That one is Sjava with Ngempela. He's featuring DJ Maphorisa there. I don't know that. It's also not like a very Maphorisa sound, eh? There are
It's
no
not.
drums. Or drum lock. What is it?
Also, but how many years was this? This is a long time ago.
But Maporisa's whole sound, he came in with a lot. He came into the industry
but he's
with a lock drum. That was it. That was him coming into the industry. All right. We are talking all things audiovisual podcasts and really presenting to you an opportunity if you are seeking to learn. Yeah.
Well, exciting times. The GOAT, I hope I'm saying it properly. We'll get the correct pronunciation in a few seconds. The Goethe Institute Johannesburg, the French Institute of South Africa, and the South African Podcasting Guild have launched an open call for sound waves, podcast training for audiovisual professionals running from the 29th of April to the 23rd of May. This is an in-person training program designed for early to mid-career audiovisual creators from South Africa, Lesotho, and Malawi who are eager to dive into the world of podcasting. To tell us more about this, we are joined on the line by Emmanuel Denavit Fela, the Regional Audiovisual Attaché at the French Institute of South Africa. Emmanuel, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
And thank you for your invitation.
Emmanuel, let's talk about this initiative and please help me pronounce Goethe Institute. Did I say it properly?
Absolutely. You did very properly. I would not do better than you do.
I love that. And Emmanuel, why is there such a big focus on developing new podcasting voices in Southern Africa right now?
Well, at the French Institute and also at the Goethe Institute, we do promote innovation in the media and also in access to the communities. And we know that radio is very strong in South Africa and in Southern Africa.
Yeah.
And that podcast is really a growing industry. So discussing with our friends and colleagues at the Goethe Institute, we said, okay, let's embark in a training program about podcasts. And we reached out to the South African Podcasting Guild, which is actually, I think they count approx 400 members, which is huge, to really do a tailor-made program for the professionals who want to know more, learn about podcasting, and having that podcast distributed.
All right, Emmanuel, it's 20 minutes after 3 Central African time. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Do stay tuned. Remember that you can indeed get in touch with us if you have any questions for Emmanuel on +27 63 406 9126.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
I want the Africa that makes every single African proud of the continent and have hope. And there's so much stuff that's going on that's positive. And if we can just lock into that, Namaganjani, everyone is going to get there.
Where are we going? Where are we trying to get to?
The idea of working together, which is why I'm excited about this new voice.
And the new voice is me, Asanda Peta, broadcast journalist with about 15 years of experience on the radio space.
Welcome, Asanda. I've been waiting for you for a long time.
Were you waiting for me?
I was.
Really?
Yeah, because for 3 months I was on my own.
So be sure to tune in right here on Channel Africa Mondays to Fridays from 6 to 9 a.m. Central African time.
If you want to know about your continent, this is the best place to start your day.
Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside.
All right, it is 15 minutes, or rather 22 minutes after 3 Central African time. We are still in conversation with Emmanuel, speaking about this collaboration between the Goethe Institute, the French Institute, as well as the South African Podcasting Guild. Now, Emmanuel, you are looking to enhance the training experience through this collaboration. Tell us about how it will be done, particularly for your target market, which is those that are underprivileged.
Yes, of course. So the training will be in Johannesburg, so it will be a physical training. The idea is to do a dynamic mix of a sound-focused workshop but also podcast production training, live recording session, and studio visits and public discussions. We will tailor-make the program with experts from South Africa, Germany, and France to really, develop, do some capacity development for the podcaster in South Africa, Lesotho, and Malawi. As you mentioned, this program is really open to these 3 countries. We are looking at selecting 12 participants, and all the costs to come to Johannesburg will be covered. So what it means is that really through this program, the idea is really to target people who have technical experience, storytelling ability, but we are also keen to have impact on their community with their podcasts.
Emmanuel, only 12 spots available. Must be quite a stringent criteria or process that you'll have to then apply to select the 12 that will then take over or be a part of this program.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why we have this open call running from the 29th of April tonight, actually, to the 23rd of May. We will stop the application when we have received 150 applications, so maybe it will stop earlier than the 23rd of May. But when we go into a process of examining the application with a selecting committee. But it's true that 12 is not so much, but 12 is at least 12.
Emmanuel, you mentioned that these participants need to have a strong link to their communities. Tell us about the importance of community engagement and why it's so important for this medium.
Well, it's quite an important part of it because the idea is, of course, to create and train people who do podcasts also for their community. And we think that if we go out of the big cities, if we go out where people do have an impact and want to have an impact on their community, that's really what we want to target with that program.
And Emmanuel, let's talk about the practical skills and experiences that these participants will then get out of this program.
Mm-hmm. So there will be some training about the podcast production by itself, also training about script writing, also discussion about the legal and ethical frameworks of podcasting, and also what's all about distribution, because once again, having a podcast done is one thing, but as you know, distributing more largely is another thing. So the idea is really to do a mix of training. It's a week, so it's quite a short program. However, it's really the objective is really to equip people and participants with really those strong bases. And the idea is also to take the benefit of being in Johannesburg, to also see, to have studio visits and engage with the local industry through a public panel session that we will be hosting at the French Institute too.
I want to know about some of the challenges that emerging creators face in the podcasting space, how you will be assisting in preparing them for those, and is there going to be kind of support beyond the training program?
So right now we are really focusing on that training program, but for you to know, French Institute, for instance, is supporting every year, since the last 3 years, one professional from South Africa or Lesotho or Malawi to go to Paris for a residency dedicated to podcast, where they get a 6-week training. So that program is actually a part of longer projects and programs that both the French Institute and the Goethe Institute have. For instance, the Goethe Institute have specific equipment in their premises to produce podcasts. So it's a program that is part of other programs.
And Emmanuel, Lesotho, Malawi, what does this say in introducing them and welcoming them and opening the applications to them as well? What does this say about the growing podcast scene in those countries? We had mentioned South Africa a bit, but Malawi and Lesotho specifically?
Well, these two countries have a lot to tell, many stories to tell, and of course podcast is also about news, and we were very eager to also include them in that kind of program. Also because the embassy, for the French, the embassy has also competency on Lesotho and Malawi. So we try to extend as much as possible our program to Lesotho and Malawi and to include them in our program, also so that they can meet and engage with their South African counterparts. And we think that it's really important to build these bridges and relationships between those three countries.
All right. Give us those details, Emmanuel, about how willing participants can enter.
So if you want to apply, please do from tonight, the 29th of April. You can do it online, either through the Goethe Institute website. If you Google Goethe Institute in South Africa, you will find their webpage easily, and also through the French Institute of South Africa website. So through our website, you will have access to the application form, and you'll have until the 23rd of May to apply. As I explained, we will stop the application when we have received 150. So be quick. Don't wait until the last day to apply, and we'll be very happy to look at your application and know more about what is your objective and mission and vision for your podcast.
Are there any age restrictions?
Sorry?
Are there any age restrictions?
There is no age restriction.
All right. So, anyone who is keen to tell the stories of where they come from, their unique community stories, and amplify whatever issues that they are observing.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's really, it's quite a broad program. So we are open to look at the project. And so, when you receive projects, it's always very inspiring.
All right. Emmanuel, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and everything of the best.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Emmanuel Denavit Feller there, the Regional Audiovisual Attaché at the French Institute of South Africa. Merci. Should have said merci.
Merci.
To Emmanuel.
I want to find out from you what podcast you would start. But for now, I think let's hear the latest in
Musibudi
sport.
would certainly be talking soccer, tennis.
You think that's the podcast you would start?
Musibudi?
You think so?
I think so. Let's hear from
Let's
her.
find out.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good morning. Good afternoon from the sports desk. Yeah, it's that podcast question that dribbled me there, guys. It definitely would be a sports podcast for sure, but I think the focus would be on women's sport, because a lot of focus has been on men's sports. Let's speak about women's sports, the challenges that women footballers, women athletes face, the financial disparities between women sports stars and versus men's sports stars, and just the situations, the problems that women Football Federation, Women Sporting Federation face as opposed to their male counterparts. I think that would be an interesting conversation to have on a podcast, as opposed to having, your soccer podcast, because everybody has a soccer podcast. People speak about soccer, people speak about Mamelodi Sundowns, Arsenal, and all of that. I think, a women's sport podcast would be quite different, a different ball game from what we consistently see out there when it comes to sports podcasts. But we'll start here. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta admits the weight of history is on their shoulders, but has called on the players to live in the moment in the Champions League semi-final against Paris Saint-Germain. So the first leg of the semi-final, taking place later on tonight, marks Arsenal's first appearance at the stage of the competition since 2009, and only their third in history. Despite the weight of expectation, Arteta encouraged his squad to focus on the present rather than the club's historical shortcomings in Europe.
You feel it, especially because we have fortunately a lot of people that has worked at the club for many years, and they've never been in this position, so that tells you how unique and beautiful it is. And yeah, it's the nicest competition for any European club. We never done it, so we need to earn the right to be in that final, and everything is going to start tomorrow.
Arteta also described this as one of the biggest matches that he's played at the Emirates Stadium and says that the players need to come to the party if they want to make history tonight.
Probably one of the biggest games that the Emirates have seen since we built it. And full of energy, enthusiasm, and can't wait to play the game tomorrow. Yeah, especially with the circumstances that we had this season and how we have overcome a lot of issues and challenges, and the fact that the team is here as one of the 4 best teams in Europe. It tells about the mindset, the spirit, and how much we really want it.
Back home now, Stellenbosch FC head coach Steve Barker continues to uphold his view that VAR is a much-needed technology in the PSL. He was speaking after Stellenbosch FC were eliminated from the CAF Confederation Cup semi-finals by Simba FC on the back of 2 penalty decisions being overturned and a Stellenbosch FC goal being disallowed on Sunday. Now, Simba won the tie 1-0 on aggregate, having beaten Stellenbosch FC in Zanzibar a week ago, but Barker did not have sour grapes.
Look, I was advocated for VAR, to be in our league. If decisions don't go away you, and it was basically, where you've had opportunity to look and make the right decision, I think it's the right way going forward. I do think, unfortunately, last week the VAR decision was left again in the referee's hands to make a decision whether the player was impeding Oscar or not, which I felt that he was. So I don't think that should have been awarded a goal. Today, unfortunately, I haven't had opportunity to look at all the VAR decisions, so it would be unwise for me to comment on it. I have been told that the goal we scored was marginally offside, so...
Simba now progresses to the final with an all-South African technical team led by Fadlu Davids, and Barkham has wished the team well for the final.
Obviously disappointed, but at the same time, wish Fadlu and Darian and all the South African technical staff of Simba all the best in the final. It was a hard-fought game over 2 legs, a game of a lot of fine margins.
And finally, Australian tennis player Max Purcell has accepted an 18-month ban for breaching anti-doping rules in a case the 2-time Grand Slam doubles champion said had been seriously affecting his quality of health. Purcell, who was provisionally suspended in December of 2024, admitted to the use of prohibited method of receiving infusions of over 500 milliliter of vitamins on the 16th and the 20th of December of 2023. The 27-year-old, whose major titles came at Wimbledon in 2022 and the 2024 US Open, did not test positive for a banned substance, but according to the International Tennis Integrity Agency, the ITIA, limit under the World Anti-Doping Code is 100 milliliters in a 12-hour period. Also in that statement, it also added, following a full investigation by the ITIA, which included evidence gathering as well as interviews with the player, Purcell admitted to the said breaches. The player's full cooperation as well as information sharing with the ITIA allowed for a 25% reduction in the sanction. His ban will officially end on the 11th of June 2026 after taking into account the time he has already served. That's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. Back with the final sports update for the afternoon in the next hour. It's 15:36 p.m. Central African Time. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
All right. Thanks, Musibudi there. But let's head on over to Bundle. And she's got the business news for us.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Mbumbi. Good afternoon. South Africa's Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, says the country's G20 presidency is a crucial chance for Africa to advance its economic and developmental priorities on the global stage. Speaking in Pretoria at the opening of a 2-day T20 high-level dialogue today, Mashatile highlighted the importance of strengthening Africa's voice within the G20, a group that represents 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade. Mashatile explains.
The South African G20 presidency provides us with an opportunity to take meaningful steps towards addressing economic and developmental issues in Africa. Since 1999, South Africa has been a member of the G20, which accounts for 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade. This group is crucial for global economic cooperation.
Nearly 3 million travellers entered and exited South Africa in March. According to Stats SA's data, 75% were foreign travellers. Arrivals of foreign travellers increased by 8%, their departures increased by 14.5%, and transits increased by 20.4% compared to February. Nortando Makudulela reports.
Stats SA says the holiday continues to be the main reason of visits to the country. Other reasons include business, studies, and medical treatment. According to Stats SA data, the majority of tourists were from Southern African Development Community countries, and travel by road was the most commonly used mode of transport. Stats SA says the number of overseas tourists who come to South Africa is generally the highest in the first and fourth quarters of the year.
South Africa's Minister of Energy and Electricity, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramakgopa, has embarked on a working visit to Botswana yesterday, where he held discussions with his counterpart, Bogolo Kenawendo. The visit was aimed at strengthening the two countries' strategic partnership in the energy and electricity sectors. The head of communications and stakeholder relations at South Africa's Ministry of Energy and Electricity, Tsakane Kambane, explains.
The visit aims to strengthen the two nations' strategic partnership in the energy and electricity sectors. The ministers had the opportunity to discuss potential collaborations on new energy generation and supply, as well as enhancing interconnectivity and aligning policies to improve efficiency and synergies in our energy systems.
Belgian Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost says Belgium is open to deeper involvement in the Democratic Republic of Congo's mineral sector. The Foreign Minister is on a visit to the former Belgian colony, which is seeking to diversify its investment partners. The vast Central African nation is home to large reserves of copper, cobalt, lithium, and uranium, among other minerals, but chronic instability has long been an obstacle to the foreign investment needed to develop them fully. Kinshasa is currently on a push to attract new players to the sector, and talks are already underway with Washington after a Congolese senator pitching a minerals for security deal contacted U.S. officials. In other news, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has said that he had a productive meeting with the representatives of tech billionaire Elon Musk's Starlink on Tuesday. The satellite internet company is looking to establish a presence in the East African country. A unit of SpaceX, Starlink is rapidly expanding its services on the African continent and is already live in more than a dozen countries. It was granted licenses by Somalia and Lesotho earlier this month. It's unclear if Starlink has already formally applied for a license to operate in Uganda. Now taking a look at our indicators this afternoon. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 60. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 527, and in Zambia, it's 27 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries. $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 reals 67. Russia is 82 rubles 34. India is 85 rupees 20. China at 7 yuan 29. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 18 rand 61. $1 is at 74 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,311 and platinum at $985 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $65.27 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
My name is Neto, NETO Chamani. Osiatiko, Nengezimo, Mkhanju, Phandle kunjani moyani. Voko tendele. Africa at Play, asteleli siyashaya. Africa's velvet voice is in the house. Africa at Play is a place to be, where we speak all things sport and music, from the African continent to the rest of the world. We speak to your bundles of joy in sport, 12-year-olds and below, teenagers in sport. And we speak to elite athletes, administrators, coaches, and all the behind-the-scenes stakeholders of sport and music. Africa at Play, asteleli siyashaya. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
An investigation by South Africa's non-profit organization Open Secrets has found that telecoms company MTN has played a role in shutting down the internet during elections and wars in Sudan, Cameroon, Iran, Afghanistan, and Uganda, thus enabling governments to silence the opposition.
Interestingly, this isn't just unique to MTN. I think the report also looks at Vodacom DRC as being a proponent of one of these violations, particularly in shutting down the internet during the elections in 2018 and 2019. Autocratic regimes are able to utilize the licenses that they have with these telecom companies basically to, suppress political dissent. And the result is that many people are left without connectivity. And not only does this affect people's ability to communicate with their loved ones and access vital emergency services, but also at a very basic level of access to information.
The Open Secrets investigator, Lu Vono Ntuli.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Central African Time. Join Tebucho and Nompumelelo on the upside, where optimism meets opportunity.
a Samayomuti. Tebogo?
I don't know. If I directly translate it and tell you, it's it's a
Because Mahlangu is not Mahlangu.
of proper medicine.
What is he singing about? Samayomuti, what does that mean?
We're having a good time this summer, guys. We're having a good time. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to be in one unison, one voice, in enjoyment.
Right.
Non-enjoyment.
Yeah, no, a minister of enjoyment. We're the ministress and minister of enjoyment here in studio. All right. We've come to the end of the Tuesday edition of The Upside, making way for Thami Ngubeni with Africa in Business, who's going to be taking you through to 5 p.m. Central African time. And then it is Joel Mateba.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it goes.
Vue d'Afrique. Views of Africa. How beautiful is that?
We're very poetic here, Ikaya, here on Channel Africa. Don't play with us.
Oh, you're about to say like hi. Well done. Yes, here at home, we are very...
Did I say here, Ikaya?
Listen.
Yes.
John Bon Jovi. You know the singer?
Yes.
Right? John Bon Jovi has a restaurant.
Okay.
Right? But his restaurant has no prices and diners pay with donations or work. Did you see this?
I did see that.
Do you think that we are ready for such...
Not in South Africa.
In South Africa. In Africa. A restaurant where there are no prices, you pay by donations what you have or you work. I think that's a brilliant one.
It's brilliant, but certainly for countries that don't have problems like we do. Not like us, no. Where there are chances galore. No, it won't work. There's no integrity. There's unemployment. There's high poverty as well. No, we've got too many problems here.
Let's try a pop-up, Nompumelelo. One pop-up.
Are you funding all of this? I'm happy to co-manage, but
we'll figure out who funds it.
Okay.
No, I don't mind. We'll find a portion. I'll fund a portion of it. But what I'm saying is, let's try a pop-up, and let's see if people will give donations. What if they give more donations than any price list would have ever given us profit?
Then they would be
sales.
going to fine dining restaurants.
No, they try to do good and give back, right, and support the small business.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a little jaded, but let's see.
Let's ask Thami if she would go to a restaurant where there are no prices and you pay by donations or working.
Oh, yes, I'd go. I'd definitely go.
Do you think it's a good idea for Africa, though? Are we ready for such? Because one does
what it does do is it depends and relies on the integrity of the client.
That's what she was saying.
And it might not make great business sense, but you're trusting your people and you're hoping that they will do you good because you're doing them good. But I don't know as a business model how that works. No, I think it would be a philanthropy model, maybe a philanthropic model, maybe something to give back to the communities, etc. And maybe if the menu is very basic and very simple and quite affordable. Yes. And having partnerships then with some, big retailers like, ShopRite or Pick and Pay or whatever the stores are, and they all come together maybe as part of a CSI project. If it's for a worthy cause, I think you can package it in such a way that it can actually become appealing, and it also weighs on the conscience of the diner.
Conscience.
Of the diner.
Hope that the diner has a conscience. I don't want to. Yeah, I mean.
Well, a great segue though into Africa in business. So now that you've started that, well, you know that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger were basically blacklisted, or the ports were closed by ECOWAS, so they can't use the ports. And they're landlocked countries, and they need the ports in order to trade. And Morocco has basically given them a lifeline. So we'll be talking about that lifeline, and Morocco has given them Segway and a trade initiative to allow them to trade.
Interested to know what's in it for Morocco.
There's always something in it.
Absolutely.
Nothing is for free.
And then also you want to ask yourself, ECOWAS also has its objectives, and these are all junta-led states, and obviously they're wanting to, achieve a certain outcome for stability within the region. Does that serve them? Does it serve the entire region? So politically as well. So it's not really just about the individual countries and what's best for them, but it's about the stability and the productivity of the entire region. So we'll be talking about that today.
Nice.
And also the Central Bank of Nigeria, they've announced a review of documentation required for transactions for Nigerians. And this is really to streamline intra-African trade and just to make it more seamless and to increase trade. So we'll be talking to the managing director at Timeline Consult Limited about that. He's also an economist.
Okay.
Brilliant conversations.
I mean, very interesting. All right. I'm definitely going to be tuning in to find out the depth of the various aspects. I mean, that Nigerian conversation as well is quite interesting.
It certainly is, and I wish we had enough time for me to ask you, what were you talking about? How did this conversation come about? But we don't have enough time. And so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Until tomorrow, à demain, as the French would say. That's how we come to the end of The Upside. Well, how you come to the end of The Upside. Let's make way now for Onele Nsinsi, who brings us the news at 4 p.m., followed by the latest sports headlines with Miss Woody Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Looking at your top stories, renewed calls for investigations into the killing of protesters by Kenya's security forces. And Rwanda and the DRC agreed to come up with a draft peace deal. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Leading human rights organizations have renewed calls for investigations into the killing of protesters by Kenya's security forces during demonstrations against the rise in taxes last June. This follows a BBC Africa Eye investigation exposing members of the security forces who shot dead 3 protesters at Kenya's parliament, igniting public outrage and demands for justice. Amnesty International and the Kenya Human Rights Commission said the officers identified in the documentary should face the law. The wider clampdown by the security forces on a series of protests against the finance bill left at least 65 people dead. The government of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to come up with a draft peace deal by May the 2nd to end the conflict that has wrecked the east of the DRC for more than 3 years. The ministers of foreign affairs of both countries signed the declaration in the United States. Chris Okamorengo explains.
The DRC and Rwanda have committed to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. They also agreed to stop providing military support to non-state armed groups. The two countries also committed to facilitate the repatriation of Congolese refugees who fled to neighboring countries. They are expected to come up with a draft of the implementation of the peace agreement by May 2nd. Qatar and the US are mediating talks between the DRC and Rwanda to end the war and facilitate trade deals in the lucrative mining sector for their private firms.
South Africa's legal representative at the International Court of Justice, Jamian Hendricks, told the court that Israel cannot use starvation as a weapon of war. The ICJ has opened hearings to gauge Israel's responsibility for the humanitarian crisis engulfing Gaza during its war against Hamas. Hendricks says Israel has deployed full range of technique of hunger and starvation in Gaza.
International law prohibits Israel from the use of starvation as a method of warfare, including under siege or blockade. Israel may not collectively punish the protected Palestinian population, which it holds under unlawful occupation. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, in his report of 17 July 2024, stated, "Starvation reflects a state's fundamental abandonment of its human rights obligations."
Road fatalities in South Africa